we're going to be talking quite a bit about not only a review or recap of Zoom, but also some of the updates and some of the new changes. We'll have an opportunity to be able to hear a little bit from each person, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about is an overlap. I see that we're joined today by Dr. Cunningham. I don't know if Dr. C, if you wanted to say anything to everyone and to kind of keep up what we're going to be discussing today.
Thanks, Gabe. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our next Transformational Monday. You made it past the half-year mark, and we only have about 15 weeks of the school year to go, which is amazing in itself. Just recently, I learned about a new term. We know growth mindset, but Simon Sinek and Brene Brown are talking about finite versus infinite mindset. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And thank you for all you do for each other and for our students. Thank you for having an infinite mindset. And thank you for making a difference. And we'll send it back to the TOSAs.
Thank you. I like that. And Brene Brown, she's phenomenal. I know a couple years ago, someone was introducing me some of her books on audio, and those are great listens or / reads. All right, so I know many of us have been coming for quite some time, and so some of the stuff we're going to go over maybe kind of just something you've seen before, but I know at the same time there are people that they don't come necessarily, and when they're here, we want to make sure we share the information that we can deepen the pool of understanding. So what I want to go through is just kind of our brief presentation. Let me go ahead and share screen, and we'll go through that. It was playing if you happen to join us a few minutes as we were in the waiting room. And that's kind of, first of all, to touch on this right here. And let me make sure I make it a little bit larger. So this is our helpful links. I know that sometimes we'll get questions and we're always willing, wanting to help, but sometimes I just want to make sure you have what you have at your fingertips. One of the things that I think that a lot of people will go to here for is the actual workshops or the trainings that we lead. So for example, today's Transformational Monday, when it's all said and done, it'll be recorded, edited, and then placed on here. So there is a section or a portion if you were wanting any of the previous sessions to come take a look at, in addition to all of the breakdown, whether it be things for Canvas or things for Zoom or things for specifically for your students, and it's constantly being added to. So while you're here, you also know that we have the actual YouTube channel. So I know some people prefer to be able to go directly to the YouTube channel and find whatever they may be wanting, but some of you may be wanting specifically, I don't want to spend my time looking around, but rather look at the list. So just you have either one of these two places. Both will give you to the resources that we've compiled as a team. In addition to that, we have our website here, which if you're wanting some specific things to one of the content areas, you specifically can access them by the content sites. Again, some of this might be a repeat, but we want to make sure we share this information with everyone in case you're not aware, so that way you are empowered and have whatever you might need at your fingertips. If you don't have to wait necessarily for a response, you can be able to get some of your questions answered. And then, of course, if you wanted more information where there are trainings, you have this link as well. And then I'm sure each of you may have a person that you're familiar working with, but at any time, if you want to send something out to the TechTOSAs at HOP, you might be able to get a quicker response from someone who might be able to get to it. So thank you again so much for joining us. Like I mentioned already, the bulk of our training today will be talking about specifically Zoom. Not only a focus of a recap, but also some of the newer features. So hopefully you're able to get more out of each person segment today as we go through it. I'm going to stop my share.
All right, I think that's me. Okay, so again, welcome everybody. We are going to be going over Zoom, but before we begin, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview on where you could find all these settings that we're going to be talking about, because we're going to be jumping all over the place just so that you understand. So we are going to be talking about the Zoom settings on zoom.com, which are your general settings, okay? And then we're also going to talk about your Zoom settings on the Zoom app, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and also your Zoom settings within the meeting. So let me just show you those things that I mentioned, and that will kind of help guide you through for the rest of today. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, so here we are. This is on zoom.com. If you go through class link and you click on Zoom, this is where it brings you. So I'm going to spend most of my time here for my part. And then later on, when Gabriel comes, he's going to be talking about in the Zoom app, which is right here, okay? Oh no, I'm sorry, not the Zoom app. That's the actual Zoom call, the Zoom settings when you're actually in your Zoom meeting. And then Christina will be talking about the Zoom app, which looks like this, so 3 different places we're going, okay, everyone? So I know that that's a lot, but it will help you understand as we go through. Okay, so let me go ahead and begin. I apologize. All right, so here I am in my Zoom.com, and on the side, we're going to spend most of our time here in settings, but just know in webinars, recordings, there's settings in there, but if I click on settings, you can see on the top, you can also access them here. So it's the same. So your meeting settings, your recording settings, and you don't really use the telephone settings. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these. And please interrupt me, any of the tech says, please interrupt me at any time, because I'm going to try to go through quickly, but if I miss something important, please stop me, okay? All right, so this is review again. The waiting room, we do have that turned on as default. That's up to you if you want to have that turned on or not. This is a big one. Some people have been asking us about customize your waiting room. You can actually customize what it says as your students or your parents are waiting for you. You could customize the message as they wait. Okay, there are edit options also, who should actually go in your waiting room. We do suggest just leaving it as is, but there are other options just so you know that they're there. Don't worry about the passcode. Those are set so that they're embedded inside your link. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, host video. So this is if you want your video on or off. So when you start your meeting, do you want it defaulted as on or do you want it defaulted as off? And same thing with your participants. Just so you know, I know you're familiar with these settings right here, but these are your general settings. These are going to be your default. And you still have the option of changing them when you go into the meeting. And Gabriel's going to go over that later on. So if you turn them on here, you can still turn them off in the meeting, but we have had teachers go into their meeting saying, I don't even see the option. It's probably because you have it off here in the general settings. So when in doubt, you could turn it on and turn it off later. Okay. That was a lot of information. Okay. So here in chat, you also have settings on if you want chat on or off. Do you want the students to have the ability to have a private chat? Again, if you turn them on here, it will be default as on. And then when you go to the actual meeting, you could turn it off from there if you change your mind. But if you turn this off here, it won't even show up as an option for you. Okay. Some other important ones here. Co-host. I don't think this was defaulted as on. So if you do want someone to co-host with you in your meeting, make sure you turn this on. The ability to have polls as well, make sure to turn that on as well. And just because you have it on doesn't mean you have to use it. Again, it's just there so that you have the option to do it. Okay. Always show meeting control bar, which is that floating device that you'll see later on. So I think Christina's going to talk to you a little bit about this later, but showing your windows during screen share, or Gabriel as well when he goes to his part. Okay. Screen sharing. Do you want your participants to be able to share a screen when they come in? So I know a lot of us have that off. When that's off, that means that when students try to share a screen, they're going to have to ask for your permission and you're going to have to turn it on. Okay, so some of you might like that off. That's fine. I have mine on because I usually work with teachers and I trust that you're going to share appropriate things there. So again, that's a default for you to choose. Your annotations also on and off here. Whiteboard. Remote control. Again, I'm speeding through this because we're going to go through it in other parts later on as well. Okay, so we have some breakout room settings here as well. Closed captioning, which we're going to go through in about a moment. Your virtual background, your filters, these are all going to be repeated later. But again, these are your default settings. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to move on to my recording settings. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything on my agenda. All right, here we go. So if you go to recordings on the left and you click on settings at the top, that's the same thing as if I was in settings and clicked on recording. Okay, so you're going to the same place. This is really important because I know you don't have to record. We're not telling you to record, but if you want the option to record, then here's what you have to do. So there are different options that you have. Like for me, I have this turned on where if we're recording, it will record you and also it would record my screen and also take recordings of the gallery and also the speaker. It's different recordings. If I turn that off, then everyone will be in one recording. And that's the type of recording we usually share with you when we share our trainings. Okay. You have some other options to optimize for third-party editing, et cetera, et cetera. You could also save the chat as well. Okay. All right. So next, okay, so since we're talking about recordings, I'm going to go ahead and go into recording. So, you know, if you do record to the cloud, you can share your links. When you do share, you have different options here. You could share publicly, only authenticated users. You could put a passcode if you want. You can give them the ability to download if you want, or maybe you just want them to see the link and you don't want them to download it to their device. So you can control that. But what's also really cool is that you can actually do a little bit of editing. So here's the video that I had. You can go over here where it says set playback range. So in essence, what you're doing is you're trimming it. So you could take your video and you can kind of trim out the beginning and trim the end. So it's exactly what you want them to see. So when you share your link, it doesn't show the whole thing. It just shows what you want them to see. You can't trim in the middle. So it does have limitations, but you can trim in the beginning at the end. So just so you know that that is an option for you. Okay. We did have some teachers asking about how do I know who was on my Zoom call? You can do that through reports. And if you go into your usage reports, it does default to a strange date. So it looks like I haven't had any meetings, which is not true. So I have to go back. And if that happens to you, just go back to a later date and you should see the meetings that you had. And then from here, you can be able to toggle through and you could find those who were in your meeting. Okay. And one more thing I wanted to show you. Let me just go to my meetings. So a lot of you have said, I changed all my settings, general settings. I did my settings in my my meeting, but I still things are not working for me. Just so you know, every meeting you had, if you had something scheduled, it would be here. But most of us use our personal meeting room. Personal meeting room has its own settings as well. So it does follow your default settings, but if it still doesn't work for you, this is a place to go. So here I am in my personal meeting room and it has its own settings. So here, see mute participants upon entry. You've seen this already before, but just in case it's still not working the way you want, this is a place to go so you can check off what you want or uncheck them and then click save, okay? And then that should hopefully help you out. That has helped a lot of teachers, okay? And while I'm here, since I'm already here, alternative hosts. This is really important because we know we have a lot, sometimes we need a sub, sometimes we have to be out, but we don't want our kids to miss our session. So what do? We do suggest to all teachers to at least put in their administrator and maybe someone else on site, maybe a TOSA or whoever will be supporting at this time so that they could start your meetings for you. So we do suggest putting in an alternative host to start your meetings for you so that you don't have to change your link or anything. They can just go in and start your meetings on time. And if you know who your sub is, it would be best to put them so that they can actually start your meeting. But in case they can't, at least your administrator is in there. And don't forget to hit save if you make any changes. Okay, so I think that was it for me. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thank you, Teresa. So what I'm going to start with today is showing you how to enable captions. Why would you want to do this? When we talk about accessibility, it's a great tool. When we talk about maybe a student that might be in a sound-sensitive environment, a lot of noise going on behind them, and maybe having the captions is going to help them. Any student that might have that might be deaf, right, or hearing problems, it can also help. So you can notice that by default, it not only captions for me, but it captions for any other students that are part of the class. Okay, so in order to set this up, you won't be able to do it today because you are in our Zoom meeting, but we're going to show you how to do it. And once you go into your own Zoom room, you can turn this on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is there's a couple of things that you have to do. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And the first thing that you want to do, Teresa went over the settings right here, but when you are in zoom.us, you want to go to settings, okay? And then you want to go to in-meeting advanced. And you want to make sure, I think it's the third one down, that your closed captioning is on, okay? So that is the first thing that you have to do. It is off by default. So make sure that that is on. And after you turn that on, the next time you start your Zoom meeting, the caption option is going to be at the bottom in your Zoom controls, okay? So once you've done that, what I need you to do is, let me stop sharing and let me share a different screen. Okay, so once you've done that, the next time you come in here, you will see, let me turn the, my Zoom, my captions off if I can right here. It's not letting me. Give me 1 second, okay? Let me change this so I can do this better. Let me move it out of the way. So let me stop the, give me 1 second, okay? I'm gonna do this again. I don't know why it was doing that. Okay, let me go back. So new share, here we go. It's still doing the captions, isn't it? Even though I turned them off. Sorry, 1 second.
Just maximize your screen and your captions go above your controls.
Yeah, I don't know why it was doing that. Here we go. Okay, here I go. Sorry about that. So let me go ahead and do this again. It's still doing it. Okay, doesn't matter. So here we go. So now that you start your Zoom, now you have that caption option right next to your recording, okay? And hopefully you can see that, okay? But it's not going to work yet, okay? When you click on it, on the little up arrow, it's going to give you options. It's going to say, do you want to assign a participant to type this captions? And that would be very difficult, right? So what you want to do is you actually want to use a third-party service to configure this, okay? And the way you're going to do it is that I'm going to give you a link on the chat that you might want to click on and save somewhere, okay? And that should be on the chat now. And what you want to do is, again, let's click on the little arrow, okay, on the captions. And what you want to do is you want to use the third-party closed caption service. So you want to copy the API token. So I'm just going to click on it and I copy it, okay? After I've done that, I'm going to go to that website that I shared with you. And it looks like this. And by default, you're not going to be signed in right now, okay? So you want to go to the bottom and you want to sign in. And it gives you a lot of different options. I will just suggest that you use your Google, your work one. Sign in with Google, okay? I'm just going to use my work one. Okay, and now I'm signed in, okay? So now it knows who I am. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to go to settings. I'm already signed in. And now you are going to see that on the settings, there is an option. You can change the appearance if you want to, but there's an options for channels, okay? And there's a lot of different options in here. There's a Dropbox, there's a OBS Studios, but we're worrying about Zoom right now, okay? So this is the one you want to click, okay? So that's the Zoom one that you want to use, okay? You want to configure it. And all you need to do is come in here and under the Zoom API token that we copy from our Zoom meeting, you want to paste that in here and you want to update, okay? And the moment you update, now when you go back to your Zoom, you now have live transcripts and it's configured. And now you have the ability to say live transcripts, enable, and you will be able to enable them and they should automatically work for you. Okay, so that is how you enable captions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that video on the chat in case I might have gone too fast or I know you weren't unable to do it because you are a participant in our meeting right now. But this is how you would allow captions for your Zoom meetings, okay? And then if there's any questions, we'll get them at the end. We'll be able to answer at the end. Now, the next option, and I think it's a great tool, as a high school teacher teaching AP Spanish literature, one of the big novels that we read is Don Quixote de la Mancha. And there's times where I want to show scenes from a movie that I think is appropriate with my kids so we can discuss and compare and contrast and so on and so on. But many of you have probably noticed that if you try to show a movie, maybe from Amazon Prime or from Netflix or from anything like that, the kids cannot see the video. They can only hear it, but they cannot see it. And Teresa is going to show you what that looks like. Let's say that I was going to teach and show a little part of Don Quixote, okay? She's going to share that video with you right now. So when she shares the video that I want my kids to see, and she plays it, is that sound on? You are going to notice that the video is playing, but the kids cannot see anything. They can only hear the audio and they cannot see it, okay? Anything that is copyright is going to behave like this, okay? So it's very simple to change this. All Teresa needs to do is go to the right on her Chrome browser, make sure you're logged in, go to the snowman, and then go ahead and go to settings, and then go all the way to the bottom and go ahead and go to advanced. And then when she gets to advanced, there is a place on the bottom where it says use hardware acceleration when available. You want to turn this off. Okay, so she went to the bottom. It's under system. She's going to turn it off, and it's going to ask her to relaunch. She's going to relaunch her Chrome. It's going to open up right now again. We're going to go ahead and go to the movie again. She's going to play it. And now your students will be able to actually see the movie and not just hear the audio of the movie. There we go.
You see?
So notice that now when she plays the video, there it goes. We are not only hearing the video, but we're actually seeing the images that go along with it. Okay, so it's a request that we had from many high school teachers mostly, but I wanted to make sure that you knew how to be able to show those copyright content movies. Okay, thank you, Teresa. And the last part that I'm going to cover with you is I love to be able to use my Zoom with my Outlook, with my Office 365 calendar. So what I'm going to show you, I'm in Office 365. This is the web version, Office 365, not the Outlook app, okay? And then here, I want you to see that I can actually connect my Zoom with my calendar. If I maybe had an appointment that I wanted to do a one-on-one, or maybe I wanted to have office hours, but I wanted to use a different link, I could do this, okay? So I can come in here and go to calendar on the bottom. Okay, and then maybe I'm setting up a new event or a new appointment. Okay, and the first time you do it, you're gonna notice that the Zoom icon is not there, okay? Because you need an add-on. So what you do is next to it, there's 3 dots. You wanna go to get add-ins. I'm sorry, I always get confused. It's add-ins in Office, it's add-ons in Google environment. So it's an add-in actually. You want to click on it. And you are just looking for Zoom in Outlook. Okay, well, should find it. Oh, maybe because I already have it installed. Maybe I just write Zoom. Let me find it again. I think it's just Zoom. Here it goes, Zoom for Outlook. Okay, so you're going to click on it, and it's going to give you the ability to add it. I already have it on my account, but for you, it'll just be install or add. I'm not sure exactly what it says, but you should be able to just add it. The moment you do that, okay, the new Zoom is going to show up in here. So now if I wanted to make this a Zoom appointment, I could click on it. The first time you do it, it might ask you to tie your Zoom with your Outlook. Okay, so I'm going to add a Zoom meeting. And you're going to notice that now it's going to say you need to tie it up to your Office 365. So I'm going to allow. This window for you is going to show up. Okay, and you just log into your Office, and I'm sorry, I'm using a different account right now. So let me go ahead and change this. Let me fix this. Come on. Let me turn this off. Okay, why can I go down on this one? Give me 1 second. Okay, so I should be able to go here, sign with SSO. Okay, this is a way to sign in. Just company domain, HOPUSD. For you, it might just be your username and password. For me, it's easier to do it this way. And now it's going to connect it, okay? And now notice that I created a Zoom meeting, and now a Zoom meeting has been created for me out of my Outlook, okay? So this is how you will connect your Zoom with your Outlook if you wanted to use this feature. And I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into one of the ways that we were discussing that you are able to access your Zoom settings. So Teresa went ahead and went over the web-based way to do that. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you and go ahead and go over the second way, which would be to be using the app. So let me exit here and get you guys off my screen, and you should be able to see the Zoom app. So when you click on it, mine's on my desktop, and I'm able to go ahead and get right into the settings. One of the first things that we kind of wanted to go over with everyone is that we had a few questions from teachers. How do I know if my Zoom account is a licensed Zoom account from the district? So in the top right-hand corner up here where it says presenting for me, I'm able to see my name, and then I'm able to see that I'm signed in with my HLP USD. And I can also see that it says licensed up here on the top right. So you'd want to double check and make sure of that. And one of the other things that I always forget about is to update my Zoom, right? So that I can have all of these neat features that we're discussing with you today. So one way to do that is to just scroll down to the bottom here and check for updates. And if you check for updates, mine is up to date with the latest, so it will tell you you're good to go. So you can just go ahead and close that. But if you do have updates, then you're going to want to go ahead and update that and then relaunch your Zoom so that it shows everything there. So a couple different things to share with you here is that you do have the settings cogwheel in the top right-hand corner. And if you click on settings there, it's going to bring you up to a screen that shows most of the same settings that you're able to find in the web-based version. I do like this one because it's a little bit more condensed. So you're not going to find everything here, but most of the things that you're going to want to change for your general settings will be in this top area here. So you can choose to have your, dual monitors. A lot of teachers are using that as well. Always show your meeting controls and, your different reactions here also. And if you click on video on the left-hand side, then you're able to, Gabe's going to talk about mirroring your video and what that looks like in just a bit, touch up your appearance. And then you also do have some other actions here, show your video preview when you're doing a meeting and things like that, right? Anytime you click on the word advanced in the Zoom app, it's actually going to take you to open up your settings in your web-based version. So those are going to be your more advanced. Like I said, the app is a little bit less. Audio on the left-hand side is where you can go ahead and test your speakers. If you're having a problem with students hearing you or your microphone, you are able to check that and make sure it's working here. And you have the ability to adjust your background noise. I know a lot of times in the background, my kids are doing work, and so I have it set for auto. It's not going to pick up all those noises there. So great tools. And then we're going to move on to share screen. If you would like to have it in full screen mode, you can scale it to fit your Zoom window for you. And then this one here for share applications, you can either choose to share an individual window or share all of your windows from the application. Those are some, like I said, if you click advanced, it will take you back to the other options. So chat, you have the ability to change your chat settings here also. You can manage users, and we're going to jump into a little bit of what that looks like as far as teachers being able to change those settings so that students are not chatting with each other if not needed. And then also your notifications are here as well. So a lot of great tools. If you want to play a sound when you receive a message or when you're in a meeting, you can turn off those notifications so that it doesn't pop up on your screen. Okay. Background and filters, those are fun. You have your virtual backgrounds here, another option to mirror on your video. You also have video filters, which you can turn on to, kind of spice up your meeting a little bit with your students. And then you have your studio effects down here at the bottom right, and you're able to change those as well, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and close this and then go ahead and move over to our recording button. And again, Teresa went over the advanced features, but if you're just wanting to go in really quickly and choose, you can optimize for third party for editing or record your video. And then you have the option to keep your files temporary or not. Okay, you can also jump to your recordings here on the web-based version. We have your profiles, you can edit your picture, and then you have statistics, and those are just kind of neat to look through as far as overall. It's not anything you're going to really need, but if you find a problem, you can also send a report to Zoom and then provide feedback if needed. There are keyboard shortcuts, so if there's something that you want to have your those set to you, you're able to check them off. They're all off by default. You just need to go in and check them yourself. Okay, and then Ricardo was just discussing about the captions. If you click on accessibility here in the search, you'll be able to see you could change the font size for those captions. So you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and then you're able to display the chat, like how big do you want that to show up? And you have the screen reader alerts here for you as well. So it's a different way of looking at things when you're in your actual app, but it may be a little bit simpler for you. And then you're also able to schedule your meetings and then return to meetings as well. So hopefully you have some new ways to access new tools. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Gabe, and he's gonna elaborate for us.
Thank you. So we've already seen thus far really 2 different ways to be able to control, make changes and adjustments and modifications to your Zoom, whether it be in the web-based version through what Teresa had shared, through the app, what Christina had shared, and now for us finally in meetings. So I'm going to screen share. And we've already talked about how you would enable this so that when you screen share, you're seeing everything that we are seeing in terms of being the host or the co-host in my case. But I want to make sure that you understand that that is something you do need to toggle on to be able to have this interface. Let me go ahead and share screen and kind of go through, and we'll be spending the bulk of our time together here. And some of this may be kind of a quick recap, things you might be aware of, and some of it hopefully might be some new information. So we're going to do our best to navigate the entirety of what the features are in meeting through Zoom. So here we are, first of all, sharing screen. You're seeing hopefully everything that I am seeing, which is all of the features down below that I have privy to me. And the first thing we're going to start with is in the lower left-hand corner where we see the option of the little microphone. One of the things that I know that is important is if you're using, like in my case, some headphones or some external devices. I know some of you may have amazing setups with microphones and whatnot. Just understand kind of where's the sound coming from, whether it be the actual mic that's picking up, it is an internal in terms of on the device. Is it actually something that you have externally pulled in? Or maybe if it happens to be your speaker, where are you listening from? I know sometimes we hear sound and it's not coming from the right source. So just making sure that you have that. There's additional things in the audio settings if you wanted to click on that, some of which we just kind of touched on. You'll notice it almost brings up that same interface that we saw with what Christina shared on the app. And so I'm not going to go necessarily through all of that, but just understanding that it gives you additional features. The other thing, let's see if I can do this. Give me a second here. Before, when I get to the video section, understanding kind of the different interfaces. So right now we can see when we're sharing screen, we have a nice little image of what Mrs. Skaggs has, but we can come to the top right, and let me see if I can do that real fast. And where you have view, we could change what our view happens to be. So we're talking about video, and I'll show you that on the lower left-hand side, but I think I wanted to make sure we can see that. So if I went view, we have speaker view, gallery view, or full screen. So we can click on any one of those things from the view to be able to toggle what our interface is, whether it be speaker, gallery view, or full screen. So along those lines, we were touching on video. I wanted to make sure we touched on that in the top right-hand corner. On the video on the bottom over here, continuing on our path from left to right, we have the stop video screen or the little camera. But if you click on that chevron or that caret, you get some additional options. And we already touched on the virtual background. One of the newer features, and one of the things I want to make sure I touch on is the ability to change your background. So sometimes we want to have a different background. Sometimes you just want to maybe keep whatever you have, but maybe you have some things behind you that you might want to see. You could easily change it to blur. And now this feature to me wasn't available until I updated my Zoom. So when we talk about the idea of updates, it's important to know if someone else, maybe a colleague or a peer, is saying, hey, I was doing this, and you don't have that feature, most likely it's because of the fact that you haven't updated to the most current version. So I just want to remind us that those options are available to us. I'm going to close this. From here, again, you have all of these different options. We just looked at the virtual background, the filters that Christina was talking about. You have those, again, available here. And then the video settings, which again takes us back to this screen. One of the things we talked about is the idea of mirroring video. I know there was a lot of concern earlier in the year when teachers were saying, let's say, for example, I'm using a document camera or I'm reading a story aloud to my students. When I click on this mirror my video, and I'll go ahead and do that now, you'll see that it kind of flips the inverse of what we're seeing. And I know I just pulled together one of the things that my daughter has made, came close to Valentine's Day for my wife. And so when you see when she read it there, kind of the look that it appears to them. So for right now, for me, it's backwards in terms of mirror my video, but by toggling it back on, it should hopefully make it that way. One of the things I think we noticed was when you are doing mirror my video, it doesn't necessarily directly impact the viewers or the participants, or in this case, students, it's impacting what I'm seeing. So to click mirror my video, it's flipping it for me. But by and large, what our students are seeing is still the correct orientation of the thing. So just understanding you have that option available to you. Go ahead and close this. So we've looked so far at mute, we've looked for at stop video, and we did touch on in terms of the view in the upper right hand corner so that you can see different options. The next one I want to touch on is the idea of security, and I think this is big. And that's the ability to be able to manage a lot of the different things that your students have and don't have access to. When you see right here where it says allow participants to share screen, we talked about earlier how you would do that in the or previous to the meeting settings, how if you're looking from the web platform or whether you're looking from the app. Here, simply, if you have it configured as such, you could toggle it on and off. So for example, inside of your actual web-based version, your settings, if you allow this to be on, you can change here whether you're going to activate it currently or take it away, so that if you have students and you're wanting to maybe share only when you give them access permissions, that's being able to enable that feature here. Some of the other things that I think are important are the ability for people to be able to rename themselves. Maybe that's something that you don't necessarily want your students to do. And as well, the ability for students to unmute themselves. I think a lot of times there's a lot of power in wanting our students to speak, and we definitely want those conversations, but there's also ample time when it's appropriate and when it's not necessarily appropriate. So just understanding that you have a lot of power at your fingertips from this simple little security setting here. And then the last one I wanted to touch on here is the ability to either remove a participant or suspend. Now, if I click on remove a participant, and you do have settings inside of your Zoom, whether it be the actual web-based version, where if you remove a participant, they're not going to be able to jump back into your actual meetings. Just understand that if you are wanting to maybe put someone in timeout, or if you want to have them, take a moment to be able to think back on what they may have done that wasn't necessarily appropriate for your class, just understanding that you want to maybe think about what you want to do. One of the workarounds we talked about is to send a student to a waiting room as opposed to removing them. So if you were to send a student to a waiting room, later you would be able to bring them back into your meeting, whether it be a couple minutes or however long maybe you wanted them to wait. But if you remove them, note they won't be able to return to that particular Zoom session. The ability to suspend participants, I'm going to click on this. I'm not going to actually do it, but understanding what it gives you. It says, I'm going to be able to, in doing this, everyone's video and audio will be turned off and screen share will stop and the meeting will be locked. So really, in essence, what you're doing in clicking on that is you're unlocking all these different things at once. So as opposed to maybe, for example, locking the meeting individually, that one setting, or as opposed to maybe looking at some of the other ones, whether it be mute or unmute themselves, you're really doing it all wrapped up into one. So that suspend participant activities is really covering a multitude of things. The last thing I wanted to touch on from here is the locking. One of the things that you saw there, and that's at the very top, is if you, for example, you're concerned with people that shouldn't be in your meeting popping in, once you know for a fact that all of your students or participants are in, you could lock it, meaning what? That even if someone had the link, even if someone had the code, once you've locked it, they're not able to get in. Now, the downside is you don't necessarily, as a teacher, know that your entire class is there, meaning you may have a straggler, you may have a kid that leaves the meeting because of their internet connection and wants to come back. So there's always going to be pros and cons to each of these things, but just understanding what that lock feature kind of unlocks for you as the teacher. It unlocks the ability for anyone to come into your meeting as you currently have it. Now, participants, we're on to the next little icon there. In clicking on this, you'll see what will happen on my right-hand side. It basically pushes out, and I like to, whenever I'm presenting, have this, and I can see each of the people that are in our actual meeting or our session. I can see what's happening. I can, from there, simply easily mute that person or do additional things. When you see the more options, so let's just say, for example, I was hovering above Robert, I could click on more, and it gives me additional options. It gives you the ability to pin people, to spotlight people, just extra things that you might want to do for the individual user. And one of the things that I think is also valuable is the ability to rename, and we touched on that. So let's say, for example, you wanted to change the name maybe of one of your students. Maybe they're the special student of the week, or maybe the student of the month, or maybe they're enacting something out. You have the ability to be able to change or adjust their name in meeting simply by clicking on them. So again, we just clicked on participants and saw some of the things that it unlocked. One of the things I thought was interesting is this upside down chevron over here. For me personally, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of keep it connected. But some of you may be using different monitors, or just the way that your personality is, you want to be able to adjust that. So I can pop it out. And when I say by pop it out, I mean it's separate. So I have my meeting going on, or my gallery, in this case of my students, but I also have my little icon here with all of my participants. And if you're saying, well, I don't want to do that, I wanted it momentarily, but I want to go back, you have that option by clicking on those little horizontal 3 dots. I have some of these other things we already talked about in terms of wanting to mute people, allow people to unmute themselves. And so some of these things, but you can also merge the meeting back. Now that last one, I want to make sure I really pointed out. I think it's invaluable for some of us working with younger students. Sometimes your kiddos may not know necessarily when's the best time to mute or unmute themselves. So by coming to here participants and clicking on those 3 dots, you're going to be able to say, oh, well, I want participants to unmute themselves, or you know what, I don't. Once I muted them, they're not going to be able to unmute until I give them permission, or something along those lines. I know some of us may want the sound effects. And what I mean by sound effects is when people leave your meeting, maybe you want to be notified of that. Or when people pop into your meeting at the same time, you might want to be notified about that. So simply clicking on this play sound would be able to notify you when people are entering or leaving. You won't have necessarily the details in terms of at what point, if you went back to your recordings, specifically about that feature, but just knowing in meeting, that's what you're controlling there. So I'm going to keep it going along those lines. I'm going to bypass polls for a moment and go to chat. And I think that it connects because you'll see here, if it were me, I would probably want to have this set up, which is what? I have my participants in the top right, and at the same time, I have my chat going. So I'm hopefully not going to miss somebody sending me a message, or at the same time, I'm hopefully not going to miss something that I need to toggle with regards to participants. And just as we saw with the actual participants, you could come down here to the chevron, and you could, the same thing, pop that out so that your chat is separate from your actual, connected to your actual gallery view of your meeting, or you can minimize that if you wanted to 10 it away, okay? One of the things I think is really powerful is the control we're afforded as teachers. So when we're working with students, you may want kids to be able to engage in some dialogue or discourse with regards to the chat, but there's going to be times when it's not necessarily appropriate. So just understanding, let me expand that you might want to be able to say, when do I want chat to be on or off? Yes, I've enabled it, but who have I enabled it with? So if I come to these 3 little dots in the little chat right here, similar to how we did for the participants, it gives you the option in terms of who can they chat with. Right now, you can set it to no one if you don't want anyone chatting amongst themselves. Or maybe it's with the host. Maybe I want my students to ask questions, but I only want those questions to be directed at me as the teacher. I don't want necessarily them engaging in conversation sidebar behind the door. So understanding that you have the ability to configure that chat settings here. And then the last one is everyone publicly, which is, hey, maybe for example, I want my students to enter an answer and I want everyone to be able to see what they're responding to. So you might ask the question, ask them to place it in the chat. And one of the things I think is really powerful is being able to give it a time. So let's say, I want everyone to enter their answer in terms of the chat, but I'm not going to have them send it right away. Maybe we're going to count down. I know my daughter's classroom was working on that and they call it waterfall. When I was working on a couple classrooms that I've had the honor of having to sit in and do some lessons, let's call it like a chat bomb because we're going to bomb all of a sudden with the chat. So call it what you will, but I think it's a powerful tool that you might want to use with your students. So that's what we looked at in terms of the participants. That's what we looked at in terms of the chat. One of the last things I want to touch on before we leave chat is just a save chat. If there's some really great conversations or things that you feel that are beneficial to reflect back on, you might want to save the chat. At the same time, there might be some things that are going on that are inappropriate, or maybe you feel that you want to share with parents or possibly other people. For that same reason, you may want to save the chat. So just understanding the features afforded there. And then the last thing before I jump to some of the other options here is polls. And so when you click on polls and you configure that settings ahead of time, here's where you'd be able to actually launch those. So by clicking on polls, you can see all the various options you have. Here's one, I could launch that, or any of the other polls that you may have set up ahead of time. Could you set up a poll in the meeting? It's not something I'd really recommend doing because it's going to take some of your time. But if you set them up while you're in, for example, the web-based version of Zoom, it makes it significantly easy here to be able to launch it and pick amongst the ones you may have had. So I'm going to close that. Here with pause, stop, we already touched on the ability to record, and you could see in the upper left-hand corner, I have all of my recording going on. But you can simply pause that if you felt like, hey, maybe, and I mentioned that in the chat earlier, like especially with what Teresa had shared with Zoom, with the trim feature in the Zoom actual web-based version, maybe there's something you want to share, but it's only that small segment so that we're not infringing upon other students and maybe showcasing what we don't want to see. But just understanding you may want to record only a segment of your lesson, and you simply have the ability to trim any portion of it, whether it be the front end or the back end of that. For the live transcript, we just talked about the closed captioning with Ricardo. And how you would be able to set that up, understanding that this would give you the feature to turn it on or off. Breakout rooms, one of the things that I think is really powerful is giving kids an opportunity to be able to communicate amongst themselves, to collaborate, to bounce ideas off of. Now, if you haven't already done that, understand that you set that up ahead of time in terms of allowing it on, but once it's configured to be allowed on inside of your meeting settings, you could come here and you could simply create it as such. I was working with a group of teachers of the day, and I didn't necessarily know I wanted a bunch of groups, but I gave them an idea and I wanted something for them to discuss. Simply just said, how many people are in my room? Let's say, for example, I have a class of 30. Real fast, I want them in pairs working together just for a couple minutes on the question I just threw out there. I could just tell it to set up to the amount of rooms I wanted. In this case, I want 15 because I have 30 participants or 30 students. And then I just assign automatically and I create those rooms. So it's not to say that you need to spend a lot of time working on trying to set this up. Could you? Of course, you can kind of get things going ahead of time, understanding how many people you want in the groups and in the kind of configurations, and you have the ability to manipulate those rooms. But if you just wanted something real quick for your students to be able to discuss, you could do that simply by coming to breakout rooms and manually, or letting it automatically rather, configure what your setup is. And then the last thing from the bottom that I wanted to touch on is the reactions. When you come to reactions, some of the things that many of us have used with our students or use ourselves are just these little icons, right, or emojis. But you all have some of these things down below. And one of the things that did change is the duration by which they're going to remain on your screen. So for example, if I were going to raise my hand, it's going to stay raised until I, as the teacher, or in terms of whoever might be the host of the meeting, actually lowers it. Someone lowered my hand.
I just did.
But understanding that those are things that are going to remain until the co-host, or in this case, the host, adjusts that. So if your student's wanting to ask something and maybe they don't feel comfortable raising their hand, understand that that's going to be there until you lower it for them. Some of the other options there is the ability for you to be able to say speed up or maybe slow down. So if I were to do that, it would stay on my screen. So if I was looking at my participants, and you can see up there, I can see that the little blue icon saying go faster or possibly slow down is going to remain until I take that off. So that could be beneficial for the silent and kind of feedback you might want from your students. So just understanding that the reactions there, the emojis, they will dissipate and go away momentarily. But in terms of those raised hands, the no, the yes, the slow down or move forward, those are going to remain until the participant or the host removes those actual things from that. Okay, so that's the bulk of the bottom of our screen. There's only a couple more things left I do want to touch on. One of the things I think is interesting is just how many different ways you could do some of the same things. And you may have already noticed that. But when I look at the ability to ask people to join, maybe let's say, for example, you're working with a group of students and there was another student who doesn't have the link, assuming you're using a different meeting. They have a couple of different ways to kind of get them to join real quickly. One of the ways is you can come to the top left-hand corner, and Teresa had shared this with me, so this is new to me, which is you can come to the little icon with the shield. You can click on this and it'll give you real quick, there's the link. So if you wanted to copy that link, I could do so, copy it, and then I can paste that to wherever I needed to paste it. Maybe it was on my Zoom class, real fast. If you're needing some students, maybe so-and-so wasn't there, but you want them there, you could send them a message and just place the link. So all they have to do is quickly grab that link, click on it, and then join you in your session. So again, I just came to the shield, clicked on that, and I can see not only the ID, but again, the link, which I think is probably the most user-friendly for our students. Now, I mentioned a couple ways. You also have the ability to do the same with your participants. So by looking at my participants, there they are. I could come to the little icon right here where it says invite, and I could do much of the same thing. I could invite someone, whether it be someone in our district, and I can have all those lists or my contacts, but you could also just send, oh, okay, here's the actual, the meeting ID, or you can come to the same thing where it says copy invite link. So just a couple different ways that you might want to pull that and share that with people who aren't necessarily in your meeting that you'd like to have them join. So the last thing I want to touch on, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, is just that view. Right now it's defaulted for it to be gallery view. I can go to full screen, or I can go to speaker view. So just different ways that you might want to configure it. And I think sometimes these are things we overlook. So there's a lot of settings, kind of overwhelming if you think about it, whether it be in the app, whether it be here in the actual meeting, or whether it be inside of the actual online web-based version of Zoom. So different ways that you might go about these things. Is there anything I missed? Please, someone from the team, if you want to chime in. But I hope that I was able to cover the breadth of it. And I think we're going to pass the torch at this point to Robert.
Robert, before you go on, just two things. One of the ones that you might not see, but right now, but as a host, I can see when you go to view, you also have, and let me get out of there. I'm not sure where you can see it right now. Let me see when I'm sharing something. Let me share something, okay? So you can see this. I'm just going to share anything. Let me share this. You might not be able to see it when I do it. But when you go share something and you go to that view, the gallery view, you actually have three options. You can see speaker view, gallery view, and also flip between what you're sharing and the videos of the participants. You'll be able to see that when you are doing your own Zoom meeting. And I'll see if I can replicate it. And the other thing that I think is important, and I know Gabe went over this, is the ability to allow, if you notice my share screen right here, right next to it, the chevron, when you click on it, you have the ability to allow multiple participants to share simultaneously. So instead of me saying, okay, Robert, now you share. Oh, Gabe, now you share. Oh, this person, they can all share at once. And I have the control on top to decide which student I want that sharing screen to be able to view as a class. So again, by going to the little chevron, you can turn that multiple participants can share, and they all share at the same time. And instead of saying stop sharing, you go share, you actually can control which screen we can see from which student. So just to throw that out there.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ricardo. All right, let's see. So the first thing that I want to talk about was that when you're in a breakout room, before it wouldn't let you let people in, because you were in the actual breakout room with somebody, and the controls were kind of different. And so when I was messing with this last night, I hadn't updated yet, and then what I saw was that I could let someone in from a breakout room, but I had to bring them directly into another breakout room. And then after I updated, so if you update to this latest version, then you could bring someone in if you're in a breakout room, and you can let them into just the general meeting. You didn't have to bring them directly into if someone's late and they're like, okay, I could send them to like breakout room number 3. You could just let them into your general meeting, and you would do that. It would kind of show you that someone was entering the room, just like it would if you were hosting your normal meeting. But let me go ahead and share my screen. Share. And I took a snapshot of what it looked like. Can you guys see me? Yeah. Okay. And so what I was in this admin room. This is my breakout room, and then I saw someone come in, and it says right here that the participants will be admitted to the main session and not directly to a breakout room. And so you would just kind of hover over them and then let them in, and they would be in there. And then I guess depending on how you set up your breakout rooms, they would either choose, or you could manually put them in a room. Okay, that was the first thing there. Let's see. Okay, the second thing is when you're at the bottom, and can you guys see my my share settings? My toolbar? Yes? Okay, good. So when you're sharing, and let me do a new share here. Let's see, I'll just do the screen. Actually, let's do this one. When you're sharing, you have the option to annotate. So I'm kind of showing my students something, and you have all these options up here. And one is just the mouse. You have select, but you also have text here, so you can kind of show that antenna. I think, yeah, something like that. You have all these different drawing options as far as free writing. The thicker line is there as well. That looks like it's also a highlighter. For some reason, there's this diamond shape. You have straight lines. You have arrows, both way arrows, boxes. The second one is the highlighter. This kind of like halfway shaded in is the highlighter. You have different stamps, which is kind of cool. So I can be like, okay, you need to be here, and then you need to be here, and then read this line right here. Or different things, like if you have all your students share, or like, annotate things together, you can kind of like, check off their work. So like, oh, good job on that one. Good job on that one. Group 3, good job on that one. Okay, and then spotlighting. This kind of shows you this little tool here, and everyone would be able to see kind of where you're at, even though you're sharing. Okay, erasers, just get rid of everything. Format, again, you could change the color, you could change, the boldness of the font, and then you have your undo options. And then inside the settings, let me go ahead and pull up these settings for you. All of these annotations would be allowed inside your Zoom settings. Actually, let me clear everything. Clear all drawings, clear my drawings. Okay, and let's see, where was it? Go back to my mouse. Here we go, annotation. So for annotation, if you turn this on, then it allows everyone to annotate. You have the ability to allow the saving of those annotations once you're done. And I have this one off because that says that the only user who can share is, only the user who is sharing is the one who's going to be annotating. So like right now, I could have Ricardo or someone else also go up to the very top of their screen, and there's the option to annotate as well.
Robert, I'm sorry. We were just not able to see where you went.
Oh, did it not bring
the
it in?
annotation toolbar didn't show up. I think we kind of understand, where those little tools come in, but if maybe you could just show where to go to navigate to that one more time.
Sure. Let's see. I guess it didn't. Yeah, I thought I'd share the screen, but it didn't share. Can you guys see the Zoom settings now?
Yes, now we can see your Zoom settings.
Okay, yeah. So if this was off, then you wouldn't have the annotation tools on, but when it's on, then it says allow hosts and the participants to use the annotation tools. And then this second one lets them save it. So either they could save it or you could save it. And because for some reason maybe you don't want them to be able to save it, but and then on the bottom one it says only the user who is sharing can annotate, and I have that one off. So if I was sharing things, and I could ask like Ricardo, oh, fill in number 1, Mr. Erickson fill in number 2, and everyone can kind of annotate on this thing together. It'll show who's writing where. So let me go ahead and let's kind of illustrate that. So if you see at the very top, there should be like this options. There's like a little small annotation or like sharing bar. If you click on that, like let's try, I don't know, Gabe or Ricardo or Teresa or someone want to try to just start annotating on this ant, if you can see it. There you go. So there's Christina. She's writing on there. And she's writing hello. And I'm saying, okay, you got that one. Correct. Good job. And then, whoever's writing here, oh, I like that one. Very good. Okay. Thank you. That one's good. And so that's kind of like a fun feature. And then once this is all done, then we can save it and, or get rid of it. And now group, 2 or the next group can kind of go and we can erase things. And then I have the option of clearing what I've done versus what the students have done versus what everyone's done. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna exit that one. And I think, for the annotation tools are pretty much the same as far as the student and the teacher. So if you kind of saw that up there, I don't think we have to kind of go over that. Okay, let's go over some more sharing options. I'm gonna go ahead and stop share again. Okay, and when I share, or let's see here, I want to share this one. Okay, right when you share, it kind of has that window pop up where it shows you all the different screens that are going to be shared. And at the bottom, you have 2 options there. And the first one is the let me see, I forgot. Hold on 1 second. Share sound. So when you click that share sound, that's going to share the sound from your computer. So if you're going to play like a video for your students, I know I have someone that forgets to hit that, and then they hit mute because they don't want to be able to hear them, but then it'll also mute the sound because that video sound is actually being picked up by the microphone. So if you want to be able to mute yourself while the students still hear your video, then hit this share sound. And this other option is optimized for video clip. This just kind of messes with the frames per second, which then lets you kind of stream video a little bit more smoothly. Okay, and then lastly, what I want to talk about is the seating chart options. So when you have your screen, and let me just double check. Can you guys see that I'm sharing my gallery view? Okay, so when you have this share screen here, you have the ability, and I kind of turned this on for most people, but the ability to kind of move around the guests who are inside your chat. And after I move things around, you can actually then right click And let's see, it's, where is it? It's up in the general. Oh, view. Under view, at the top right, when you hit that, then it says release the video order. So once you hit that, then everyone's going to kind of go back to where they were before on your screen. So, you know, if you wanted to, for some reason, I'm only looking at certain students right now, I can kind of move them around, like maybe Ms. Clark and Gabe and Mr. Erickson and Ms. Du, they're in a group. So I just kind of want to move them together so it's easier to see and they're not on different pages. I can kind of move them together. Okay, and then when they're done, then I can just kind of, you know, throw everyone back. So that's an option for that. When I hover over a student and I hit those 3 dots, then they have the ability to, you know, pin to the first screen or to the second screen. So I'm using multiple monitors, and this is like for me, or for, let's say a student was, you know, hard of hearing and they had to have like someone signing for them. And so what they could do is they could always pin that one person to the screen for them, you know, besides the speaker or, you know, or besides their teacher, and they could always see certain people that they would always want to see and not just, you know, random people. And I believe I went in and I allowed multi-pin for everybody that I could. And so I think I went to everybody's screen, and it'll say here, like, you know, allow to multi-pin or remove multi-pin. And I believe that when I right click on Christina, it's not showing much because she's a host. So it's not going to let me kind of do that for the host. But if you're just a regular guest, then there's more options that I have as the host to allow pinning or to removing the multi-pin, you know, things like that. Okay. And then, you know, one more option that there is this spotlight. So where is that? Let's see here. Okay, here we go. So I have this, you know, spotlight, and I'm going to spotlight Mrs. You know, Du for everybody because she's the one that's going to be speaking. But then later, let's say Ms. Du and Mr. Erickson are in a group, and there should be a multi-spotlight. Let's see. Where's that at? Add spotlight. Okay, so now Ms. Du and Mr. Erickson are together, spotlighted for everyone, and Ms. Norris. Ms. Norris is, you guys are also in one group. So now this is a group of 3 students who everyone needs to watch, and I can highlight just them for everybody. Okay, so that's the multi-spotlight option. Yeah, multi-pin, multi-spotlight, seating chart. Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you very much. Oh, and let me release everybody. Okay, there we go. Okay, were there any questions about any of those things that we just went over?
Christina, you want to check if there's any questions that we need to address? And if not, we could take some live questions. And if not, we have posted the feedback link on the chat for everyone to take.
Perfect. Our question document has been filled out. One of them was just a review on how to make sure that your Zoom has the latest updates. And so the answer is there for you. Once you're in the Zoom app, you just click on the cogwheel and then scroll down to settings, and you're able to check for updates there. There are a couple questions about students annotating. It seems that only some can see what's happening. Often there's a delay, so it's kind of confusing. It may be related to the internet connection, the speed. So some students might be, and that might even be the device as well, because I know that certain devices, it's a little bit more difficult.
Oh yeah, I mean, if everyone's at the same time, I mean, it doesn't know what to bring in first and second, so it will make things lag. So maybe just, you know, one group at a time. If you had 100 people trying to annotate, it's just crazy.
There's a lot of different, obviously, alternative websites or platforms you might use. I obviously am biased towards Google, and so I'm going to suggest a Jamboard if you're wanting kids to annotate. But that's just one option. If you want more information, I'm welcome to share it with you. But there are other options as well.
And I've kind of seen that used as like a reward, you know, just like, okay, you know, the group that finishes first gets to scribble on this face, you know, and kind of make a afro and mustache and glasses and kind of funny things to share with the whole class. And then after like, you know, 30 seconds, like, okay, next thing to do. So.
Thank you. And then there's another question about pinning. Pinning is in regards to just your personal view on your screen, and then the spotlighting would be visible to the whole class. So that's just a clarification. And one question that's on the document now, is there a way you can turn off screen sharing when they are in the breakout room? So when students are in the breakout room, are you able to turn that off? I would say yes, you just go to your screen sharing and turn off all participant screen sharing, and then turn it back on again. Tectosis, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure if that impacts when they're in the meeting. I don't know if anyone else can speak to that.
I mean, I would think that when they're in the breakout rooms, they would be able to share with each other, you know? So yeah, I would think if you would turn off the screen sharing for everyone, they wouldn't be able to.
What if you're not in the breakout room with them? That's more my question. Because there's been times I put them in the breakout room, and then when I go into the breakout room with them,
I think Danny
they're
has
like
a
on Go
solution.
Noodle.
I think Danny has a solution for us, Danny, if you want to.
So what I found is that I have to go back to the main breakout room and go down to my setting. If I'm wandering around helping them in breakout rooms, I can't do anything for them when I'm in the breakout room. But if I leave and I go back to my main room where no kids are in the moment, I change the setting and all their rooms update.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank
by going to
you.
security, you can just turn it off.
Another question in the document, can you show again, Robert, how to create the seating order or the video order? If you don't mind sharing your screen again.
Sure. Okay, share screen. Okay, so this was like a few updates ago, but yeah, you can take people, like, for example, I have everyone, sharing their video, but then Ms. Tucker's not there. Oh, and who's spotlighted here? Hold on. Gallery view, remove all spotlights. Okay, so I couldn't move them when someone was spotlighted. I think too, if people are sharing, I can't move them around, or there was some weird thing like that. But now I can kind of move people around if I need to. Maybe just for my benefit of, like, these people are a group and these people are a group. I want to try to just group all my groups together so I can kind of just see them all together. And then later, we're doing something else, so I want to change my view, and I'm going to release the order, and everyone's going to kind of go back to where they first came in to. I mean, I've read different things, so maybe there's something to, like, look out for. But if I have the same class every day, will it save the order that I put them in the next time they come in? So that might be a future update where it kind of recognizes, but I'm not sure about that for right now. Okay. But then as far as being able to highlight, for people too, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go to, where is it? Spotlight for everybody. And so the one person is spotlighted, and then I just have to go again to add spotlight, and I can spotlight as many people as I want to share. Here's group number 1. All right. Okay. We have some good looking teachers. All right.
Robert, along the lines of you sharing, we had a request to be able to go again to the waiting, or to see the waiting room when you're in a breakout room yourself.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to admit.
Sure, let me bring that one up again too. Okay. Share screen. There's the picture. Okay, yeah, so I was in the breakout room, and then it alerts you if you click on the participants, it alerts you, oh, so-and-so is in the waiting room, and you just have to hover over their name, and then it'll say allow to the main session. And it was a little tough not having a full classroom. I'm gonna have to go into somebody's classroom and actually kind of play with this maybe a little bit more, and have people leave and come in to see all the different variations on whether I created a breakout room where they self-select, or where they automatically go, or I assign them, and whether I'm in the main room or the breakout room, and how all those things work. But before you couldn't do this, and then now you are able to.
And then as far as being able to like freeze a seating chart, that was what we were talking about. There might be future, but as of right now, that function is not available. So just to clarify.
Yeah.
Danny, did you have a question?
Just a follow up to the breakout room and kids in the waiting room. Is there, I do have an update I noticed today, so I'll update again, but I've noticed if I go into I have 7 breakout rooms, I go to breakout room 3, I can't get my participant panel back. So I don't know who's in the, like, kids have been sitting in there for a while, which is why I know this. And I'm wondering so the participant panel's up with all my kids. I keep it up all the time. But the minute I go to breakout room 3, that disappears for me. So how do I get it back so I can monitor as I'm popping around my breakout rooms if a kid's late? Does that make sense?
So you want to be able to see all the different breakout rooms that you've made and who's in every breakout room?
I just want to know if anyone's in my waiting room, and I don't know how to do it when I'm in room 3. It doesn't, I saw what you did, but I don't have that visible.
That's the new update, is that it will show you that someone's in the waiting room while you're inside a breakout room.
All right. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
It just came out today. Someone had a question on the chat. They are sharing YouTube videos, and they turn on the enable audio and also the optimized audio, but the parents and the students still cannot hear the sound. Any other suggestions or tips you might have?
But they're able to hear other sounds. They're able to hear the instructor, but just not the videos. Is that what it is?
It was mentioned that it just sounds very, very soft, even though everything has been done, and the kids cannot, and the parents cannot hear the audio from those YouTube videos.
If the instructor's audio is clear, but the video is soft, then it might be the teacher has to go into that video, and there's a separate volume control on the actual video and have to increase that. Can't think of anything else. If you gotta think of something else, it happens to me sometimes, but yeah, like on the YouTube video on the bottom, there's like a volume control.
Would adding stereo sound make a difference?
Yeah, I think so.
So what Teresa was speaking to was just this right here. So I know individually you might have the sound in your actual device, but you also have the audio from within the actual media that you might be sharing. So right here, that little toggle button.
The stereo sound, Ricardo, are we talking about the original sound?
So let me share my screen. So when you are on your Zoom, and if you go to your settings in here, let me just go to settings. Under audio, you could perhaps turn on high fidelity music mode and also stereo audio, and that might make a difference. I'm just throwing that out there. But I don't know how much of your resources on your device is going to take, but that could make a difference.
I don't see any other questions in the question document. However, if you have any live questions that you'd like to ask, we're going to go ahead and open it up for that now. As people decide if they'd like to type some more questions, I'll keep checking that. Otherwise, we are so glad that you were able to join us today, and please let us know if you have any other future questions.
Someone had a question in the chat, and maybe I'm the only one that is seeing it. How do I unmute students without asking them?
So I don't think you're able to do that, right? They have the ability.
On the participant.
Do you mean verbally ask them? Because what Robert is talking about is from participants, you have that option and it'll notify them with a little message. The host is asking you to unmute yourself, and you could do the same thing for your video. So if a student has a video off, verbally I'm not telling the student, but a message will pop up from participants I click on that. Do you want us to show you those options?
No, I'm referring to like there's students that they don't want to talk and they're just sitting there and they're mouthing and they're pretending. And then I'm like, unmute yourself, and then they won't do it. And so I want to unmute them, and there's just one that they just don't want to participate. So I want to unmute them myself, but there is no feature for that then. Okay, thank you.
Privacy issue.
Can I ask a question on the updates?
Someone
I
just
was-
muted me.
I was trying to see if
It's
it
a lot.
worked. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you had a question, Ms. Norris?
Sorry.
Yeah, on the updates, Christina said something like I could find them in the settings in my Zoom. I look under settings. I scanned through. She said something like it'll show up if you need an update, or can you go over that again?
Yeah, let me just go ahead and let me share this for you guys here. Drag you. You guys see yourselves right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let me figure out. Let me just get this off of here. Okay. And I don't know why I don't have my, do I have my Zoom pulled up? Here we go. Let's see if I can do it this way. Screen one. And you're still seeing yourselves now. What happened? I was able to share it before. Oh, there we go. Okay. So when you go to your settings at the top right, on the not the cogwheel settings, but the top one here, you're able to go ahead and check for updates. So it's about almost all the way down. And once I click check for updates, mine tells me that I'm already up to date because I have already updated this morning. So, but if you haven't for a while, then you'll be able to see a screen that says, go ahead and click update, and then you'll have to restart your Zoom again.
What if you don't have that? I get a little drop down menu. I get my name, my email address, and it says licensed, and then it's just sign out. Do I need to click on?
I think the confusion is that you are actually going to zoom.us and you're looking at that on the web. This is actually the app that is on your computer. And the easiest way you can find it is if you were just to next to the windows on the bottom left, you could type Zoom.
Yeah, so if I type in Zoom here, it brings me to my Zoom app, and then it opens it up. I also have it on my desktop saved as this one right here.
So don't use the class link. Don't go in through class link to do it.
Not to update. Not
Right.
to update.
Oh,
Always
okay.
use the one in class link.
Yeah.
Always use the one in class link, but for update reasons, use the other one.
For update. Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, great. Thank you.
That's why we wanted to show all the different platforms, because you can do some things on one and not on the other, and it's easier to access in certain ways, you know, depending on your preference too. So
I have another question also. You might have touched on this, but I got kind of lost in the translation. Students writing on the screen. So say I'm in the middle of something and all of a sudden I have somebody doing hearts and flowers. And I looked in my settings and I have it clicked on that other people can do that, but I never specifically said, okay, so-and-so you can write on the screen. So how are they?
A couple of things. You have the ability while in meeting to adjust so that that's off. And then furthermore, you can be able to toggle the feature so that you can see who is the person that's actually responsible. Meaning when you see little doodle marks or hearts or what have you, you will see a name associated so that you'll know directly who is the person responsible for those things if you didn't want to go the extra step of turning it off. But those are your couple options. I'd highly encourage all users, because I know I was teaching a lesson and I had that happen. I didn't have it configured as such because it wasn't my meeting link. I was hopped on different teachers. And I had the very same thing. A student was writing all over the stuff because they thought it was hilarious. And so I had to adjust it so that it was turned off for them.
So it's in that initial settings that I would have to turn that button off, but
that would be so permanent, like an override, but while in meeting, you still have the ability to toggle those features on and off. So you have both options. You could do it ahead of time outside of the meeting, or while you're in the meeting, you have the option as well.
okay.
And that'd be from your little floating toolbar. So from a little floating toolbar, sometimes you'll have, I think it may be most likely on the more, and you should see the options for annotate. And because you are the host, you'll be able to toggle who has the ability to adjust the annotations.
yeah, we can't see it on your screen though, Robert. I was going to try and share it too, where you're able to see that little
The other box pop up.
I think it's because we're not the host. Is that right, or am I mistaken?
Maybe if we have Mrs. Norris share her screen, she'll be able to see it at the top and then be able to look and see what we're talking about. Because I don't know why it's not popping up for us when we're sharing.
Yeah, it's like an orange box. It says more, and then it says disable annotation for others. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's right there.
Okay, I'm
You
trying to
have
do
to-
it on my laptop, but I'm on my Zoom. I'm doing the Zoom on my tablet. So I could share my screen.
Yeah, see if you could share your screen, and then on your screen, we won't be able to see it, but at the top, does it give you an option, another toolbar that says, all the annotation tools?
Yeah, the little annotation box will pop up.
What happened? I don't use my tablet here for Zoom, so I'm for this reason.
It's okay, we're patient.
It's okay because I don't know what's going on with it, so I don't use my tablet for Zoom, and I can't get it to show a screen, so I don't. I'll just play around with it.
Yeah, when you share your screen, you should be able to see at the top there'll be a toolbar, and then you're able to change those settings in that toolbar once you get into that screen share. Let's see if there it is. Gabe has it on his screen share now.
So that shows up when?
When you share screen?
I never get that when I'm sharing a screen.
Did you go up to view options? Are you able to see at the top where it says view options? You should be able to
We see a black bar.
click
Gabe. Is it
annotate.
just me?
Oh yeah, see, we still can't see your.
Do you want me to share? See if we can see it on mine. Hopefully we
I'm
can.
trying to open up my screen.
There you go.
snip.
So
No,
you have your floating toolbar over here.
There it is.
And then you have the annotate. When you click it, then you get the tools to annotate there. But you also have the ability over here on more to tell it that you want to disable the annotations for others, or you want to hide the name of annotator. So if you don't want them to annotate, you would just disable it, and you can enable it in the meeting again.
And we didn't have those, I
didn't?
don't think, because we weren't the host. So if you're trying to do it from our current meeting, Ms. Norris, you won't be, you wouldn't be able to because you weren't the host of this current meeting.
Right.
Something that you asked before about the ability, I don't know who asked this question about the ability to unmute the students. You actually could do it. If you go to zoom.us, now the kids have to give you permission, but what you do is under your advanced, in-meeting advanced settings, you want to turn request permission to unmute, and you turn that on. And then when the kids first come to the meeting, it says the host wants permission to unmute you, and they click it once. And once they've done that, you can click it and unmute them without having to ask for permission. Just throwing that out there. It is doable.
Thank you.